We have had a very colourful week in North Queensland, though, because there's been a French flavour in the air. That very large defence vessel pulled into Townsville at the beginning of the week. And aside from some of the work that the French sailors have been doing with our troops at 3rd Brigade, they've also had an opportunity to soak up the atmosphere. There's been events that they've attended at Anzac Park, and also the ambassador has been here. Dr. Maxine Newlands, Senior Lecturer in Political Science at James Cook University, is here with us this morning again. I guess this is a bit of, diplomacy happening in our own backyard right now, isn't it?
Very much so, yeah. So the French, as you say, French ships are in Townsville. There's also one in Cairns. And it really is a kind of geopolitics in action. We obviously know as well that our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has been over to France recently with the submarine deal and all that connection. So, yeah, it really brings it home, that message to the world that Townsville is positioning itself as a real hub for kind of defence and defence force. It's not just the French, obviously Singapore, and yeah, it's pushing that kind of message out there.
I know the Mayor has been having meetings with the Ambassador as well, and talking up Townsville as a location. Is France now back in flavour or favour here with us in Australia? There seems to be a lot going on between the two countries now.
I think it's a bit of it's a mutual benefit, shall we say. So definitely back in flavour. That seems to have been solved. But we are, to use the international relations term, we're a global north country, i.e. we're under the remit of Western culture, and we are the only Western culture in this side of the world. So we are an ally to Europe and to, our heritage in the US, but we're also geographically positioned so that we're close for French territory. So if something was to happen, not going to hopefully, but on French territory in the Pacific, they would call on Australian forces being the nearest. So that relationship is kind of there. And there's a little, obviously, subtext going on here as a message to China, and, that there is a bit of an alliance. And it's a show of force as well.
Yes, indeed. I think a lot of people have met some new French friends this week as well, which has been nice. Though back home, I understand the protests over the raising of the pension age in Paris are back on again. There's protests. The garbage workers have gone on strike. It's the troops would probably prefer to be here than at
maybe.
home at the
and not
moment.
To be dismissive. And I have a former PhD student who lives in France, and she said, "Oh, we go on strike for everything."
They do,
yes.
It's how they get things done, don't
exactly.
they? If they want the government not to do something or to do something,
it's not a Wednesday unless there's a blockade somewhere.
Well, there's been some interesting developments in federal Parliament this week, and we don't even know when the date of the referendum for the voice to Parliament will be, but already it's causing so much discussion, particularly this week in the Liberal Party, in light of Peter Dutton's decision that the party will oppose, and the news that those in the front bench would be supporting on that as well. So we saw a very high-profile defection, I guess, we would say, to the backbench.
Yeah, so the Minister for Indigenous Affairs with the Liberal, the Shadow Minister, I should say, as you say, has gone to the backbenches, along with the long-standing Liberal Party member, Ken Wyatt.
Ken Wyatt. He's left the party entirely
completely,
now.
Yeah. And there's rumours around the Leader of the Senate, the Simon Birmingham as well, though lots of Canberra talk around, is his position becoming untenable because he doesn't agree with the position of the party. But they've obviously done a three-line whip. They've obviously said that, this is the position and you either stick with us or you don't. So it's very interesting because that is not a good sign for Peter Dutton as the leader to have that conflict inside of the party over something like this. And then, of course, externally, you've had quite a lot of elders and traditional owners saying that their comments have been taken out of context, particularly over on Palm Island. So it's not going well on the kind of party politics for the Liberals.
Would Peter Dutton have been thinking that it was good to have a united approach on this and maybe didn't canvass as widely, or what's happened here, do you think?
Well, remember they're always in the minority, so they've had 56 seats compared to the government, which has just over the magic 76, 77. So they're always going to have to be a vote en masse if they're anything like this, because they need to sort of show unity. But if you've got, as we're seeing now, that kind of disconnect between the party mandate and the individuals, that'll weaken their position. So they do need to have that voice, excuse the pun. Otherwise it looks weak.
Is it necessary, considering that at a referendum it is a personal vote, so everyone will be voting in a ballot box with their own choice?
It is necessary because it's just like an election. Same thing, when we vote in the general elections, it's our personal choice. So this is just a clear, instead of obviously all the many candidates that we can have through our process, this is a clear sort of, do you vote yes or no? And I think also, there's been an indication early on that the Liberal Party were going to say not support the proposal being put up by Labour. And of course, the Nationals came out quite quick. So they're sort of on the back foot as well, and it's all just a bit messy. If people are going to vote no, they're probably going to vote no anyway. Regardless, because we're not voting on party lines here. We're not voting on politics of which party. So it'll be interesting to see how much of an impact this has, or whether we start seeing shifts maybe from those backbenchers for more of a compromise. There's already talk at the moment of maybe the wording might change. Maybe there'll be a little bit of wiggle room in what actually happens when it goes to you and me to decide.
So it's going to be a long process by
the
sounds
think
of things.
So.
We know that the vote may happen late in the year. They're saying maybe October or something, aren't they?
Yeah, it could be. They were aiming for mid-year, and now it's being pushed back to later in the year. But it's a classic politics, sort of putting up that black and white, position, because you've got the no campaigner, and you're hearing about a lot of money being put into that from supporters of no. But then we've got the celebrities from the yes coming in for the Labour Party, and it's really kind of starting to sort of set itself up as a bit of a battle. So, and it's very dominant. It's been going since January. We've been talking about this, and we haven't even had the vote yet.
That's right, exactly. More to come.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that's happened in state circles this week has been that just yesterday, the Premier came out and said that she is open to the idea of maybe a mobile phone ban in schools. We only had a story on the program just yesterday saying that Queensland was the only state not to impose some regulations when it comes to mobile phone usage in schools. Is Queensland sensing a bit of a change in mood on this one, maybe?
Yeah, potentially. So the Premier has come out and effectively said that the heads of the schools, the principals, the executive principals, are the ones that make the decision. So we don't really need a ban, a government rule which will say, yes, you can't ban schools. But because of the New South Wales, there's a new Premier down there, also Labour, so that could be interesting.
Who said that they will ban schools?
They're going to ban
phones in schools.
And that's been very well received. And it's a classic, it's an election promise, and it's one of the reasons they've been voted in. So now there is pressure on Queensland, who are always the ones that seem to say no. So it'll be, but the Premier has very much punted it back to the federal. So then it's gonna be quite interesting, whether there's pressure internally from schools and from principals for this to happen, or whether it becomes a national ban, because effectively that's what Anastasia Palaszczuk has said. She has said this is not a state-by-state issue. This is something that we either do together or we don't do at all, and we leave it to the principals. So very much sort of batting that one back to the federal government. Let's see where it lands.
Indeed. I wonder if the Premier has any power to ban phones in theatres.
Yes.
Cinemas and theatres. I would be up for that.
Okay. Little bugbear of yours there, isn't
it,
Michael?
People go to the movies and halfway through the film they're texting people.
People talk at the cinema as well. That drives me mad. And the theatre. And at gigs, go to music concerts and they jibber-jabbering at the back.
Well, you heard about the people who got turfed out of the Bodyguard in the West End the other day because they were singing the song "I Will Always Love You" at the end, and how annoying would that be at a theatre performance?
Yeah, because you wait, don't you? You wait and you wait for the favourite song.
You don't want to hear old mate up the back singing it. You want the stars on the show to sing it. Anyway, thanks for that. Maxine Newlands, good to talk to you again.
Thanks, Michael.